Hello everyone, and welcome to Pale Cachexia. Lynx here. I hope I did not butcher the title, by the way. A game from Argent games. I got sent the Steam key, and apparently I got a green light to play through entire thing, so we are going to do that. To be fair, I knew the studio, indie studio from Red Empress, which I haven't played, but like it arrived in the sight of mine quite a few times. Well, we're going to play this one. Thank you for the key, by the way. Let's get to it. This is going to be interesting, I believe, from what I've read in the description of the game and so on. So let's get to it. I like the music, it's kinda dark, so that's cool. Lonely. Strangely lonely. Those words surfaced in her mind as she gazed up towards the towering trees, their branches extending forever in all directions. They made her feel so small and insignificant, like a frail leaf on the wind, at the mercy of wherever it took her. Lonely. There was no other way to describe this place. I mean, not gonna lie, you can tell there is loneliness on her face. Just a little while earlier, she'd stepped out of her hired carriage, leaving the main road to explore these woods. Esther's driver had warned her that the forest was seldom visited. Esther. I think I played a game called Esther. Never mind. If she ran out of supplies, she'd have to walk back to the road on foot and hope to flag down a stagecoach heading to the city. Damn, we are moving a little bit back into the time. And that forest is haunted, girl. Dangerous for anybody, let alone someone with the pale. I wouldn't head in there if I were you. And seeing as it's almost evening, I'll take you back to the town for free. But she refused the driver's offer. Understandable. Turning away from her last hope. It was impossible. The decision would haunt her forever, a hanging mystery of what she might have discovered. No matter how isolated or helpless these vast woods made her feel, she promised herself she wouldn't live without answers. A light breeze brushed past Esther's cheeks. It carried the fragile scent of spring, for a lingering, wintry chill still blanketed the forest. You know, given that you can hear the birds, and I wouldn't say, like, you know, evening or night birds, you wouldn't assume this is evening. Or is it just me? Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Did I read this line? I think I did. Spring always made her symptoms worse, somehow. As everything gathered in its energy to bloom and flower, her lethargy only seemed to become deeper and darker. The more vibrant Esther's surroundings grew, the more she felt her energy draining away. Some days, she barely had the strength to even move. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to hate the season. Yeah, spring is great. It hardly seemed fair to be angry at the world for turning its cycles, for life continuing on around her, just like it always had. Even now, she still remembered when spring was her very favorite time of all. She cute, by the way. Esther suddenly came to a halt. Bending down, she curiously patted the first floor, searching for whatever it was. After a moment, her fingers brushed something small and cold. A key? What was the key doing out here, in the middle of nowhere? Puzzled, Esther turned the tiny, shimmering piece of metal over in her palm. No marks, symbols, or engravings. It could have belonged to anyone or anything. After a long moment, she rose slowly back to her feet, slipping the key into her shirt pocket. Perhaps it was a good omen. She'd always had a hard time with superstition or questions of fate, preferring the calm logic of cause and effect to anything unseen. But these days, as the world's realities seemed to grow even bleaker, Esther found herself hoping for something more. It didn't really matter whether things like omens or destiny were actually real, as long as they made life a little less unforgiving. A little less. Tiny bit. With a small flicker of hope in her heart, Esther turned to carry on once more. She had no map, no directions, and almost no clue as to what she was searching for. Only the faintest trail of possible cure. Interesting. I mean, yeah. Okay, now we are getting the vibes of the evening/night. As the hours passed by, all sense of time was devoured by a sea of unending trees. The forest's dreamy springtime vanished, faded, to a ghostly gloom. There should be an owl flying around. Speaking of which, and I was on a run, of course, in the evening, and an owl literally flew past my nose. I mean, it was maybe a meter or two away, but still, past my nose. Anyway, the forest's dreamy springtime varnish faded to a ghostly gloom, the cheerful birdsong replaced by rustling crickets and distant ominous howls. Oh boy. Wolves? That's going to be dangerous. Painful sting suddenly shot across Esther's arm. It yanked her out of her absent-minded wandering back into the oppressive emptiness of the forest. What happened? After a moment, she realized she'd walked too close to the brambles. Warm droplets oozed down her wrists, an uncomfortable reminder to always watch her step. As Esther gazed down at the small, welling beds of blood on her flesh, her surprise began to shift into a sense of knowing doubt. Perhaps Shirley had gone too far, after all. If there really was anything, or anyone, within these woods, she would have stumbled across it by now. And if the rumors were false, just another folktale made from empty hope, spinning more empty hope in a vicious cycle. Was all of this nothing but the dead end? Had her whole journey been pointless? Hopefully not. Would she have to tell them she'd failed? Hopefully not. Idiot! Esther muttered aloud, struck by a sudden sense of self-loathing. Those harsh thoughts could be dealt with later, but she couldn't keep stumbling through the darkness so pointlessly. Failure or not, it didn't change where she was right now. She had a flint and tinder in her satchel, along with a little water and rations. If she gathered some loose branches, at least she could make fire to keep warm. True. It wasn't the first night Esther had spent alone, in the middle of nowhere, and it surely wouldn't be the last. That's something I'm gonna say. I mean, I've never spent a night in the forest. Slowly, cautiously, she crept through the thick underbrush. The moon's fake glow offered enough light for Esther to find a few branches long and dense enough for a campfire. I mean, in the open, in the forest, something like this. But every time she crouched down to forage, her fingers searching through the cold, damp earth, it felt like someone was breathing right behind her ear. Esther shook off the ghostly sensation with a deep shudder. I mean, I would say that that's the feeling you get in the forest at night. It was just the old rumors she'd heard. They were finally getting under her skin. Foolish tales of primeval spirits guarding the forest, devouring the soul of anyone who ventured too deep. Of course, Esther never gave any credence to those stories. I'm losing voice. I blame Katawa Shoujo today. Anyway, let's go. Nor would anybody with common sense, for that matter. Ghosts simply didn't exist. Still, the sooner she had a fire, the better. I mean, it would make you feel more comfortable, right? I'm guessing. As I said, I've never been in the forest at night. So yeah. At last, Esther spotted a clearing just beyond the trees. With her bundle of sharp branches cradled in her arms, she hurried out into the open, anxious to finally set up a camp. But as she stepped in the glade, and the shadows gave way to shapes, she froze. Oh boy. That's crazy. There, right in front of her eyes. But I don't see any light in the windows. Maybe the one with the balcony? Or maybe it's just the angle we see that it might look like there is light, but you know, it might be from the moon or something. Anyway, a beautiful aged house rose amidst the darkness. I mean, it might be? I mean, it's dark, so it stood like an elusive mirage in the desert, too perfect and out of place to be true. Was it an illusion? Or by some miracle, had she actually found the apothecary's estate? But surely the place was abandoned. It gave off an atmosphere far too lonely and desolate to be inhabited. Esther could barely discern any of its features, so thick were the shadows that shrouded the house's mountainous shape. A thick, swirling mist consumed the earth around its foundation, seeping across the ground like some poisonous cloud searching for intruders. Like its very presence was waiting to reject her. This had to be it. A place that had evaded all maps. And yet, she'd simply stumbled upon it. Something about that idea made a sense of deep apprehension crawl down her spine. But she approached, right? In a trance between fear and fascination, she found herself moving across the clearing, towards the Manor entrance. Is it like a swamp? The pale mist seeped around Esther's boots, swallowing her footsteps one by one. Okay, might be the mist giving that feeling, to be fair, but close. It felt like entering a dream, as if she were slowly crossing the threshold into a different reality. until she realized that her fingertips were suddenly brushing the cold metal. Let me guess, that key will be for the door. Right? With handles for those foreboding doors loosely grasped beneath her uncertain, trembling palms. Please. The soft, nearly inaudible word left her lips like a whispered prayer. Slowly, gingerly, the handles began to turn, until with a softly beckoning creak, the doors yawned open to allow Esther within. Okay, so I guess the key was not for the door here. What will it be for? I wonder. Oh boy, this is creepy as heck. Damn. I would not enter for sure. At least not at night. Inside the house, the scent of musty, aged wood greeted her from the darkness. Just barely, Esther could make out the shape of a stairwell, illuminated by rays of moonlight. Something about it compelled her. I'm so prepared for some jump scare. Or perhaps it was simply less frightening than exploring past the pitch-black archway ahead. After a hesitant pause, she closed the doors behind her. The wind had started howling, faintly casting an eerie echo through the Manor's foyer. Slowly, Esther crept up the stairs, wincing at the small creaks that followed her movements. The second floor held a number of rooms, their doors all ominously closed. On a nervous whim, Esther decided to reach for the second door on the right. Inching it open with bated breath. What? The vacant room was like alchemy room? A study. Close enough. As her eyes drifted around the dark space, she could see rows of shelves stuffed with books, a cluttered desk, tables full of dusty alchemy equipment. I was correct. A study. Esther's heart leapt in her chest. Even though the apothecary was no longer here, what if they'd left some of their research behind? Yeah. With the light of day, she could comb through these books and papers. Surely there had to be something of use in them. Maybe. Just maybe. I mean, she could use the candles, right? I had to point this out. She had finally found a glimmer of hope to cling onto. This place is too clean for. Someone's gotta be there. Allowing herself a heavy sigh of relief, Esther closed the door behind her and stepped towards a small cot nearby. Cold as it was, at least she had a roof over her head and a bed to spend the night on. And doesn't need to be afraid of those wolves that we heard the howling of, right? As if on cue, she felt the wave of exhaustion blanketing her mind. Maybe it was time to carry medicine and sleep. Even a few hours would be enough. Oh boy. Was that a creak? Esther froze, every inch of her body suddenly petrified. Another creak. And another. And another. Something was right outside the door. Wait, just a minute. Oh, that's how you go, okay. A chilling tightness gripped Esther's chest. She couldn't breathe. Every instinct her body told her to stay utterly silent. Don't let it sense you. Don't get caught. Don't move. Don't. Without a warning, the door
burst open. She had no choice but to look and see. Not a monster or a ghost, as we expected. Only a young girl, trembling in obvious fright. Who are you? Her fright slowly fading, the girl stared wide-eyed at Esther, still shaking a little. She'd probably been expecting to see a ghost, too, and they ended up scaring each other equally. I am Esther. Esther? Esther! That's your name? Esther nodded. And you're real? This isn't a dream, is it? No. No. I don't think so. Oh boy.
I was on my toes, not gonna lie. In this situation. Totally expected something weird to happen. I mean, something weird happened. Basically nothing dangerous happened. But yeah. An awkward silence followed their strange conversation. Sorry.
An awkward silence followed their strange conversation. Esther found herself wondering if maybe this actually was a dream after all. Really, it almost seemed too surreal to be anything else.
Right? A little bit. But then again, I mean, Esther did not sleep.
After a long few moments, the girl's expression began to soften. She took a small, hesitant step towards Esther. Then another. And another. I can't believe it! Another person came here.
And what do you mean another?
A real girl right in front of me. This is so exciting.
Are you also lonely? Just like Esther was, basically it was said in the very beginning, right? I mean, she might be. Are you living here alone? So many questions. Sorry.
Baffled, Esther gazed down at the lighted, warm face beaming up at her. My name is Seina. Oh, ho, ho, ho.
Definitely that laughter right now. I mean, this is the sign. The hand.
I'm so happy to meet you, Esther. I was getting a drink from the well, so I didn't see or hear you come in. You must have thought the house was empty, right? I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to scare you, but Seina let out a small, nervous laugh, toying with the ribbons on her dress. You're the first person I've seen in 6 years. Wow. Damn. I never expect to find someone else inside of the house. Especially not in this room.
What do you mean?
Had Esther heard her right? Seina had been living alone here for 6 years? Was it possible that she was the apothecary the rumors talked about? Oh! You haven't eaten yet, have you, Esther? You look so tired and hungry. Gasping softly.
I don't know what I wanted to say there.
Gasping softly, Seina reached out to clasp Esther's hand between her tiny palms. I'll light the fireplace and you can get warm while I make you some supper. That sounds nice, right? Come, let's go downstairs. All right. Taken back by Seina's eager offer, Esther hesitantly nodded. Even though she wanted to ask what Seina knew about the cure, her stomach rumbled noisily at the thought of a warm dinner. And it would kind of be rude to just straight jump to that topic, right? It wouldn't hurt to wait until they had eaten, surely.
I guess that's true, not gonna lie. But I said, this place, at least inside, was too clean for there to basically nobody be there, right?
And here we are.
Anyway,
Still holding Esther's hand, Seina led her back downstairs and into the parlor. As soon as she'd stuffed some wood in the fireplace and set it alight, the darkness suddenly lifted, melting into a cozy warmth thanks to the fire's cheerful crackling. Before she really knew what was happening, Esther found herself wrapped up in a pile of blankets, sitting on the couch before the hearth. Seina seemed like a little blur of happy energy, fusing over Esther one moment, then heading back to the kitchen to check on her soup. Clearly, she was delighted to have a visitor. Esther felt a little embarrassed, at a loss for how to deal with the unexpected kindness. Here we are! Eat it while it's warm!
this place has so many books, by the way, like the alchemy room. There was a lot there. Over here, another bookcase. Damn.
Before long, Seina was nudging a bowl of steaming soup into Esther's hands.
What kind of soup?
Filled to the brim with brightly colored vegetables and dark broth, it had a delectable scent rich with herbs and spices. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. There is plenty more in the pot if you're still hungry, so don't be shy.
Okay, I've got to admit, this is something I noticed lately. I really like if there is one ribbon on the side in the hair of the character. I don't know why, but I like that.
Oh, that reminds me, I have to clean the stove before my lamps goes out. I'll be right back. And then she was gone again, her light footsteps pattering over to the kitchen. As Esther gratefully ate her supper, she could see Seina's figure darting back and forth, sipping a bowl of soup with one hand while she scrubbed the stove with the other. At first...
Wait, the fire is going down, isn't it? That's cool that you've managed to implement something like that.
At first, Esther found it almost impossible to believe. A small girl like Seina, living by herself in the wilderness, taking care of the whole manor. But from the natural, precautious way she seemed to handle everything, it didn't take long to realize she was in her element. Most of the older girls and boys from the city wouldn't be able to last a week out here, without access to any of the normal comforts they took for granted. And yet, even whilst she told to beat the dwindling lamplight in her kitchen,
Yeah, imagine actually, current generation city kids, dropping them into the manor like that, without access to what we currently have. That definitely they wouldn't be able to withhold. Anyway.
Seina looked as contented as a buzzing bee in a field of flowers. Phew! A few minutes after Esther finished her meal, Seina wandered back in the parlor, wearing a satisfied smile. Kitchen is clean, and you've eaten. I hope the fire got you nice and warm too. It did. Thank you again for taking care of me. Oh, please don't worry about it, really, Esther. Actually, she gave a tiny sheepish laugh, her pale cheek turning slightly pink.
Wait, ちょっと待って。This expression is kinda dark-ish, ain't it? Don't you think? I might not. I hope I'm not the only one thinking that.
I already cleaned the stove yesterday, but I was so excited and nervous from meeting you that I had to calm down a little bit. Cleaning always makes me calmer, so I'm glad I have a big house like this. It always gives me lots to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm sure the house is glad to have you too. I really hope so. Beaming brightly, Seina flopped down the cushions beside Esther, dangling her legs over the sofa's edge. Another short, awkward pause soon followed. Seina fidgeted a little, staring at the fireplace intently, as if she were too shy to start up the conversation again.
Oh. By the way, I like Esther's eyes. I know, I mean, it probably is not that visible in the webcam, kind of similar to mine. I mean, maybe mine are not that light, but I have rather light bluish eyes, right? Anyway,
after a hesitant pause, Esther decided to finally break the silence. She had to ask the question that had burned in her mind from the moment they'd met. Seina? Are you the apothecary that lives in these woods? Esther's words made Seina abruptly stiffen. Where did you hear about an apothecary? In one of the towns nearby. People said there was a hermit living out here, an apothecary who used to live in the city. Somebody who found the cure for the pale. All of Seina's cheerful energy seemed to slowly dissipate. Her gaze drifted down to the floor, lingering there as if anchored by a heavy wave. I'm sorry, Esther. The apothecary. It's not me. It's... Seina grasped the fabric of her dress, squeezing it tightly. It was my father. It's true that he had a pale, and he managed his symptoms for a while. But he died 6 years ago. Just like that, disappointment shattered Esther's heart. But even more accurately, she felt a sudden pang of sympathy for Seina. How it must have felt to lose her father so young, living all alone in this deep forest. I'm sorry. Seina gave her a small, sad smile, gently shaking her head, as if to reassure Esther it was alright. But she offered no other reply, and stayed unusually silent, swallowing hard once or twice. I'll leave tomorrow morning then. There is no reason for me to cause you any more trouble. You could still stay here. What? She stared at Seina in surprise, taken aback by the girl's sudden interjection. I mean, stay here to look at Papa's research. He has a lot of papers and books in his study, and journals too, although he told me never to look at them. But Papa spent a lot of time working, and I know he took notes about the pale. So if you stay and read through them, you might find something about the cure, right? Her voice quivering slightly, Seina turned to gaze at Esther with her hopeful, eager smile. Thank you, but I don't want to stay here and be a burden. Oh, Esther, you'd never be a burden. You barely ate anything, and you're so quiet and kind. Really, why don't you stay?
Okay, I understand. Esther feels a little bit uncomfortable here, right? While our blonde, let's say, owner of the mansion, I mean, her loneliness must be so painful.
Esther gave her a hesitant look. As much as she wanted to accept Seina's kind offer, it just didn't seem right. After all, Seina obviously worked hard to take care of this place, but Esther didn't have any way to repay her hospitality. Well, if you're going to be very stubborn about it, you can help out with chores during the day and look over Papa's research after. As if she'd easily guessed the source of Esther's reluctance, Seina gave her a reassuring, cheerful nod. I have a lot of food and wood stored from winter still. Anyway, so it's really fine. Please, don't worry about it.
I wonder if she has some garden, or how does it work exactly?
Esther studied Seina's expression, those shining eyes that were all but begging her to stay. At least, if she helped out with work, she'd feel better about spending a week or two here. Or more. Even if it still struck her as taking advantage of Seina's loneliness.
I'm not sure. Is it taking advantage of her loneliness? Maybe a bit.
Alright. You're sure I won't be burdening you? Yes, yes! Yes, I'm positive. Absolutely. Halfway through her delighted cry, Seina suddenly cut herself off with a gasp. Oh, I forgot. You have it right? The pail. Esther nodded, puzzled at Seina's sudden question. I won't ask you to do any chores then. That wouldn't be fair. Papa told me how awful it always made him feel. He couldn't even get out of bed some days. It must be terrible, being so drained all the time, no matter how much you rest. It's fine. I can work. But... To be honest, the longer I don't do anything, the worse I feel. It's hard to push myself, but it's better than when I want.
I should say I don't, but never mind.
It was Seina's turn to hesitate, but Esther offered a small, determined smile to reassure her it was alright. She hated when people pitied her or went easy on her. It bothered Esther even more than the symptoms themselves. If you're sure then. You know yourself better than I do, it's true. She giggled, clearly overjoyed that Esther had agreed not to leave. Then it's a deal. You'll stay and go over Papa's research and help me out with work during the day. After a brief pause, Esther dipped her head in a silent agreement. We'll start tomorrow then. Oh, I'm so excited. I can show you the well, the gardens.
Okay.
The stream.
Okay, maybe she's doing some fishing.
The cemetery. We can pick flowers and have a picnic and sit by the fireplace and... She trailed off, biting her lip with a dawning look of embarrassment. I am sorry. I get a bit carried away sometimes. It's alright. It's alright. For a long pause they were both silent again. But the pause was warmer, gentler, like one between friends. The fireplace's stove crackling echoed in the parlor, a comfort against the howling wind outside.
Oh, it might have been wind, not the wolves as I thought before.
Well, you're probably exhausted, aren't you? Why don't you sleep here by the fire? I can bring more blankets so you can have a good night's rest. I think I have enough blankets. Esther mumbled, still cocooned in the numerous woolly sheets Seina had wrapped around her earlier. You must say that now, but you can never have too many blankets.
I agree with that.
It gets quite drafty in here at night. Huddling a little deeper into the warm covers, Esther offered Seina a small, grateful smile. Well, if you need me for anything, my room is upstairs, right next to Papa's office. I'm quite tired too, so I think I'll head off to sleep. With a lengthy yawn, Seina stretched her arms over her head, then hopped up to her feet. The darkness clouding her features earlier had all but vanished, and now she beamed as radiantly as the sun. Good night, Esther. I hope you have a wonderful dreams. Good night, Seina. Thank you, really. She gave Esther a long, heartfelt smile, one that seemed wise and peaceful beyond her years somehow. After that last look, Seina finally turned away, her light footfalls pattering towards the stairs. Esther watched her go, listening in something of a daze, until she heard the bedroom door softly click shut. The past hour almost felt like a dream itself, and Esther half expected to waken by a shoddy campfire at any moment. Her hopes for finding a cure had been dashed, rekindled, dashed and rekindled once more. And now, she was reluctant to let her expectations run too high. She could stay here for a little while, going through the apothecary's research, in search of any clues, but there was no guarantee she'd find anything of use. Still, it was the only thing she had to go on.
I mean, she was told that apothecary had some ways to not really stop the symptoms but slow them down, right? So there is a chance, if she knows how to deal with all that stuff as well, a little bit at least, with the notes she can maybe find the cure, right?
And if there was a chance she wouldn't return home empty-handed, then it was worth giving it a try. And Seina. What a strange, remarkable girl. She'd survived out here alone for 6 years, suffered the death of her father, and yet somehow still remained as buoyant as a feather. Esther found it hard not to be deeply curious about her, and envious of all her whirlwind, energy, and excitement. It reminded her of a time not so long ago. Back when she used to be like Seina.
Huh.
With a quiet sigh, Esther reached down to her satchel. Before she slept, there was one thing she had to do. Just like every night. Slowly, Esther pulled out a fine silvered pocket watch, its thin hands marking the time. But when she pressed one of its buttons, the back abruptly popped open, revealing a tiny glistening syringe. With practiced motion, she jabbed the needle straight into her arm. It stung even more than usual. As the seconds passed, Esther watched her blood slowly filter up through the syringe into the watch's mechanisms.
What is she doing?
Then, after a long few moments, the flow stopped, and the blood reversed its course, oozing downward back into her body.
Why?
As it returned beneath Esther's flesh, a dark circle slowly spread around the pierced spot. She kept her focus on the watch's face. 2, 5, 8. The hour hand started swiveling forward. 10, 14, 18, 24. Click. The last drops pushed into her vein.
I actually have no idea what she did. Does that watch have some functions? I mean... Oh my god, I need to know.
Wincing, Esther pulled the needle free, closing the watch with a hasty squeeze of her palm. This medicine of hers.
What?
A marvel of technology, they called it. But Esther hated the needle far more than drinking the normal tonic. If only it was easier to bring the ingredients with her everywhere. Right now, she didn't have much choice beyond the watch, which injected a potent version of the remedy into her veins once a day.
Wait, but... Did I understand something incorrectly? Like, at first, she somehow got the blood out of her vein, right? It went through the pocket watch and back into the vein? That's crazy. I'm kind of mind blown right now.
And yet, despite her reliance on the watch, or maybe because of it, Esther longed to be able to cast that twisted thinking with fire like the one before her now. Dropping the watch back into her satchel, she curled up tightly beneath her blankets. The parlor felt colder and less cozy now that she was alone again. But as she closed her eyes, all of Esther's exhaustion caught up with her at once, weighing down her body like a heavy sheet.
Plus, she did that thing, so I guess it also got the influence on exhaustion, right?
Before long, the crackle of the fireplace lulled her to sleep, sheltered from the cold night outside. And all her restless thoughts gave way to a deep darkness.
And I guess this is a good moment to end the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue tomorrow. The link to the store page on Steam Steam store page, of course, in the description. I wish to tell you what is exactly the price of it, but knowing life, I will only be shown the Polish price, which is a little bit problematic in this situation. However, I can more or less say, oh, this might be about it. I know it's 10% off at the moment, okay, after the release, so you can get it. Why not? Hey, it has achievements as well, and the story is so freaking good. I mean, I know we are barely 50 minutes in, but it's so good. Okay, so the price of the game is, I mean, 22 in Polish currency. So like, I don't know, 5.99? I'm guessing here, okay? Don't quote me on that. Basically, it's not expensive. It's not expensive, and I believe it's worth it. Totally worth it. I mean, I would buy it if I were not given it. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for the key. Much appreciated. And I will gladly cover the game as you asked, because it's super good. Like, it's super good. I'm really getting drawn into it. It had this little bit of a creepy vibe at start, you know. Then the girl, right? Nice atmosphere between the two and so on. It's going to be interesting. I wonder if something creepy will actually happen. We'll find out eventually, I guess. Anyway, for now, hope you enjoyed. Tomorrow we'll get the second episode, which I'm actually too tempted, and I will record today as well. But for now, hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a wonderful day or night, both. So yeah, and I will see you in the next video. And go buy the game. Bye bye.